This lesson will briefly cover the First Continental Congress, some of the aspects of the Second Continental Congress, and the process that led up to the draft and the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The First Continental Congress was the colonists' attempt to get together and come to a unified decision about how to handle increasing oppression from Great Britain. The Congress met in Philadelphia from September to October of 1774, and every colony except for Georgia sent delegates to the meeting. Together, the colonists recognized that the oppression from Great Britain was a growing problem that continued to influence their life in big and small ways. As a result, they knew it was important to get together and meet to come up with a unified approach to handling the situation and whether it was necessary to escalate that unified response to a greater level. This is important for understanding not only the colonists' initial reactions to oppression from Great Britain, but also for understanding how they preliminarily chose to elect representatives and send them to a meeting to discuss the critical issues of the day. The primary issue facing those attending the First Continental Congress had to do with coming up with a unified response to combine their authority to Great Britain. Although they were hoping to arrive at a uniform decision, delegates from different colonies showed up and showed that there was no unified perspective on the best way to handle the situation. Pennsylvania and New York, for example, sent their delegates with instructions from residents in the colonies to try and find a resolution with England. Among the other colonies, elected representatives were split between whether to try and reach resolution peacefully or to separate from Great Britain, if possible. Although some of the parties attending this meeting had different goals, they were also faced by the challenge of distrust. They did accomplish several critical tasks during their time, however. The first matter taken up by the members of this meeting was presented by Joseph Galloway from Pennsylvania. This plan encouraged the election of a Grand Council that would represent the colony's interests as a whole. In the vision of the creator of this plan, this council would be equivalent to the English Parliament. Just prior to the time on which this plan was to be voted, representatives from Boston showed up to the meeting and they provided evidence of conflict and violence in that region. So by a narrow margin, this plan was discarded entirely. In October, on the 14th, the First Continental Congress discussed issues that came to be called the Declaration and Resolves. This defined the direction of the Congress at the time by generating a statement of principles that were actually common to all the colonies. The Congress decided to meet again in the following year if their grievances were not addressed by the British government. On October 20th, a pact emerged known as the Association. This was an agreement to resist Great Britain while keeping the channels of communication open. The plan was set to activate on December 1st of 1774 unless English Parliament rescinded the Intolerable Acts. As time went on, the colonists did not feel like their issues were being appropriately heard or responded to by the British government, and this led to that meeting of the Second Continental Congress. A convention of the delegates from the colonies also met in the summer of 1775 back in Philadelphia, and this was shortly after warfare began in the American Revolution. Some of the greatest accomplishments of the Second Continental Congress were to help manage the war effort in the colonies and to continue talks that would move the colonies towards ultimate independence. And finally, the Declaration of Independence. In June of 1776, the colonists were still frustrated about England's inability to respond to their concerns. Political and military uncertainties were a key issue for colonists at this time, and many leaders anticipated that a congressional meeting would lead to a vote for independence from Great Britain. As a result, the Continental Congress appointed a number of individuals to draft a declaration for independence on June 11th. This committee of individuals included Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Roger Sherman, and Robert Livingston appointed Thomas Jefferson to undertake the actual task of writing the document. The version that Jefferson created was revised by other members of the committee with 47 changes made to his original draft. It was presented to the Continental Congress on June 28th. The Congress voted for independence on July 2nd, making final changes to the document with 39 revisions, and the document was adopted officially on July 4th.